All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the webinar Embracing Adaptability in Oil and Gas. I'm Jake Kalinowski, and I will be hosting today's session. A couple of housekeeping items before we get started. This webinar is being recorded, and we'll email the recording to everyone on today's call. Your line will be muted during the presentation, so if you have a question, please type it into the chat box at the bottom right-hand side of your screen. The panelists will address these questions at the end of the presentation. We don't anticipate any issues, but if we happen upon a technical glitch and the webinar ends, please try logging back into the session. To kick things off, I'd like to introduce Fritz Smith, P2's Chief Revenue Officer. Fritz, over to you.
Thank you, Jake. We appreciate you all taking time out of your day-to-day to allow us to share our unique perspectives on how to embrace adaptability in today's oil and gas landscape. P2 has had a rich history as a strategic partner with customers like you, enabling your success in accounting, production, land, and data. And we're fortunate to have a team of professionals that collectively monitor issues they see in the industry and look forward to opportunities like this to share with you. As Jake mentioned, I'm Fritz Smith. I'm Chief Revenue Officer, and I'll be your host today. Thank you all for joining. We're very encouraged by the level of interest in today's program. We value your partnership and participation and are really excited about the content being presented today by our distinguished panelists. Additionally, with us today, we have let's forward the slide. There we go. Tim Wadley, the VP of Large Cap Integrated Solutions. Tim is going to discuss the current environment and best practices. We've also got Brandon Elam, VP of Accounting Solutions. With him, Steve Fnabe, Director of Product Management. They're going to discuss accounting strategies for consideration during these times. Also, Chris Lennick, SVP of Production with Clara Fuge, VP of Production Management, and they'll walk through accuracy and efficiencies in production operations. And finally, Billy Lowry, VP of Land Solution, and Richard Hines, VP Landman Operations, and they'll discuss scale, management, and outsourcing considerations for you and your teams. At the conclusion of this program, I will open up for Q&A. At any point during the webinar, please type in your question into the chat box, ensuring it goes to all panelists in the drop-down menu. Also, please note which panelist the question is for, and we'll aim to answer all questions during the Q&A session at the end of this program. Without further delay, Tim, I turn the floor over to you.
Thanks, Fritz. Thanks, everyone, for participating in P2's roundtable. It is paramount that we as a community collaborate, and P2 is excited to help facilitate some of these discussions. I'm Tim Wadley, and I've been working for nearly 25 years on how technology can enhance and streamline business processes for upstream oil and gas operators. As OPEC started to fall apart and coronavirus set in, the industry has been hit like never before. Truly unique times we are going through, and we continue to see that today with low or even negative oil prices, although I guess we did see a bump yesterday and this morning. And I'm not going to speculate, though, on what's going to happen next. I did want to shift gears and talk about short-term, mid-term, and long-term a little bit. The first task is really just keeping your operations running. So everybody working from home or in the field, being able to access the information they need. I'm assuming, and it seems like most companies are getting through this process, but if you guys have any need in that area, please feel free to reach out to P2 and we'll help you with whatever we can. The second short-term objective is to control your cash on hand, right? To keep the door open, reducing cost. What we are hearing is that most projects are being, that if they haven't started, they're not being started, they're being delayed. Any existing projects, including drilling and other projects, unless they're, depending on where they're at in the cycle, but most of those are being canceled as well or delayed. And finally, we're hearing that some companies are starting to furlough employees to retain that cash on hand and determine how to remain sustainable. So with those two short-term things, I want to talk a little bit longer term. First thing everyone needs to understand is that There is no going back to the old normal. The question is, what does the new normal look like for upstream oil and gas? And to start this conversation, I want to highlight a key point regarding changes in technology. We all know that technology is changing quickly, but we probably don't realize how fast, I guess. I mean, it just is a part of our life. And there's really more than we can talk about today during this session. Everything from, I mean, the reality is we wouldn't be able to work remote like we are if we didn't have, the mobility, the bandwidth, technology costs have come down, Wi-Fi performance and reliability, cloud-based solutions or SaaS, software as a service. I mean, all these things have changed drastically over the last few years, and they continue to change. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that companies that have adopted these new technologies like cloud were able to adapt to the remote work or our new environment easier than those that had not embraced the quote digital transformation. And by digital transformation, I mean a broad term meaning everything from Internet of Things to artificial intelligence to mobility and data analytics. And companies that haven't adopted those are struggling more than the others. Next, numerous articles are anticipating that the pandemic will accelerate the digital transformation. So just Google COVID-19 and digital transformation, and you'll get thousands of results. What these articles are saying is that, hey, you can cut cost, but this is a transformational time, and that really it's going to be a different way of doing business for all industries, and particularly, I think, because of what was happening with OPEC and the supply side, impacts oil and gas, upstream oil and gas, probably even more. But what we're going to see is reduced manual activity, and that's in the field through automated well operations, in the office through automated accounting, all of that to reduce cost to remain sustainable in this new environment. It's important that you research and focus and spend money even on technologies that will support that new normal, and P2 is here to help. So today we're going to talk about how P2 is using technology and best practices for using P2 applications to enable companies. First, reducing OPEX cost. For example, using web-based LOS reporting with the ability to drill down to the invoice, vendor analysis reports, being able to compare vendors and vendors' cost to really understand what that cost is and how you can control that cost on a well-by-well level. Number two, smart production. So North Dakota has already shut in over 6,000 wells, about a third of the production. Focus on what wells are most favorable to you and really understanding based on ownership, location, well profitability, how that will impact which wells you shut in. And P2 reporting has the capability to analyze that well profitability. And Chris and Claire are going to talk in a few minutes about empowering the operator in the field to help with that process. Number three is smart capital investment. So, I mean, as we talked about, drilling rigs are down. Right now, all projects are being evaluated to see if there is the proper return, but there's still going to be some investment, and that's critical. So to not only maintain and hold the leases, but also to increase your reserves. And so having the information on which wells, again, just like smart production, which wells are going to provide the most return and controlling the cost associated with that investment. So P2 reporting and P2 accounting solutions help manage that capital spend and understand that capital spend. The fourth item is effective back office, and there's a few points I want to make here. First of all, and there are challenging times like this that you have to focus on what you do best, and you should really look at outsourcing those non-core functions. And so as an engineering company and an oil production company, potentially outsource the entire accounting solutions. And P2 has P2 outsourcing to be able to manage that process, as well as land admin processes, et cetera. But it could also be through leveraging cloud or SaaS models, so to reduce the cost of your internal software and internal architecture. Also gets you new capabilities faster, supports access from anywhere, which as we know now is critical. The third point is integration of business processes. So P2 is a leader in integrated land, production, and accounting in a way that others are trying to match. If you are manually entering master data in multiple systems or spending time reconciling information across different systems, it's time to look at your systems and understand, is there a better way and to manage that? And finally, workflows to automate repetitive tasks and approvals like manual journal entries, ownership changes, and P2 as P2 workflow to help manage these processes. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Fritz.
Thank you, Tim. Great perspective given what's transpired over the last couple of months. I'd like to now turn the floor over to Brandon Elam and Steve Tanabe to talk about accounting strategies to consider within your financial accounting systems.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Fritz. Brandon Elam, and I have responsibility for our global accounting products. Appreciate everybody's time today. As most are aware, oil and gas accounting has a set of workflows and processes to follow, and it can be hard to identify areas where we can drive new efficiencies and lower costs that hasn't already been done. But that's our job. Our job is to think about, and we do have a number of ways to leverage technology, different processes or new services to lower costs directly or free up time to do other mission critical activities. I'd like to start by introducing my colleague, Steve Tanabe, who will be able to briefly take a few of these ways. Steve has 30 plus years of oil and gas accounting. He served as a JIB revenue consultant, an assistant controller, and been a product manager at P2 for 12 years. Steve, in this latest downturn, what are some processes, services, or technologies you would like to highlight as opportunities for cost savings?
Thank you, Brandon. One item often raised is payment processing, check printing and processing, ACH payments, and paying by virtual cards. One consideration to reduce cost is to outsource payment processing to your bank or a third party. P2 has partnered with FIS Global to assist you in achieving that goal. You can gain significant cost savings in printing, postage, and prep time using these services. An additional cost-saving measure is to use data sharing sites like EnergyLink or CDEX to upload check remittance and JIB invoice information to reduce costs in printing and mailing these statements. Other services provided by these sites includes the ability to download operator and purchaser data directly into the exchange site, from the exchange site into your accounting system. Also, the distribution of gas balancing, payout statements, and state and federal 1099s, and more recently, the burden of providing the North Dakota royalty statement. The next thing is to review your business processes to determine if you are gaining full benefit from your accounting system. What processes are you doing in spreadsheets, and what can be done in your accounting system? Overhead application, DD&A calculations, allocation and valuation of production volumes required for revenue distribution, and cost center allocations, both LOE and capital costs. The items cited are often done in spreadsheets and are better completed in the system. Finally, review your business processes for best practices. Are you experiencing a high level of correcting entries in certain areas of your business? Analyzing the root cause and defining process improvements can result in a large time saving. Using exception reporting, price exceptions, volume exceptions, and others to define trouble spots. Determine what areas consume most of your staff time, and are there ways to improve your business process? Would an automated workflow streamline your daily and monthly processes? For instance, can you automate your AP process, automate your revenue and JIB closing process, automate your ownership change process? Each of these have helped our customers gain efficiency and reduce costs. Brandon, these are just a few actions that can help customers save time and money.
Thanks, Steve. When it comes to the payment processing services, the data exchanges like EnergyLink, about how many of our customers utilize these methods? Reach out to if they want to learn more about it.
I would estimate that around 50% of our customers use EnergyLink, and 30 to 40% of our customers currently outsource through either a bank or FIS. I would recommend they contact their account executive, or they can feel free to contact either of us for more information.
Those options are very well established options, sounds like. There are a couple of other ideas for cost saving or saving time. One of them is upgrading. Upgrading to the latest version of Bolo and Excalibur, for instance. I mean, why does upgrading factor into lean operating? Well, time is money, and recent performance updates have been made to Bolo and Excalibur to save time. On the Bolo side, the revenue upload and allocation performance has been improved to be faster, and we're seeing speeds of up to 10% faster for those processes. On the Excalibur side, we've done a jib refactor, and it's showing us about the same amount of speed improvement. We're also in the process of testing multi-threading release that has reduced revenue in the testing we've seen so far, that revenue processing by about 50%. So we're constantly updating. Our focus is on speeding up these processes to save you time. Being on the latest allow for speedy deployment, as being current on the product enables us to deliver patches and updates to resolve issues quicker, while you only test what has changed. Once you're upgraded, we do have some new APIs, and you can take advantage of these. These are RESTful web services that we have built onto Bolo and Excalibur. First, if you have Merrick P2LAN or iLAN and do not have the integration turned on, highly encourage you to do that and work with our teams. This integration enables automatic data flow and reduces manual entry. But you can also utilize these web services to integrate your own systems for more efficient operation. And we do have a number of customers that have written their own integration to our APIs to automate data flow. Next, data availability is imperative in this environment, to be able to make critical decisions for your business. And oftentimes this requires large volumes of data to view, analyze history alongside the most current transactional data. Do want to make sure everybody's aware, we do have a brand new product called P2 Data Stream that provides near real-time data availability of all the accounting data in an operational data store. And it does it without impacting the performance of the accounting operations that traditional ETLs do. This product also integrates with P2 reporting or third-party report tools for viewing and trending. And then I feel like I should talk about our hosting service as well. We have about 120 accounting customers that host with us today. This service lowers your cost by providing upgrades, application maintenance, infrastructure maintenance, long-term planning, hardware planning, disaster recovery, the SOC 1 and SOC 2 audit reports, which are by themselves, tens of thousands of dollars. We can do this at a low cost because we leverage repeatable processes and negotiate vendor services to spread across a large volume of customers. So if we have 120, we're spreading that out and passing that savings on to our customers. So recommend that as well. So with that covers our section. Fritz, I'd like to send it back to you.
Steve, Brandon, thank you very much. Appreciate you sharing with us today. As a reminder, at the conclusion of this program, again, I will open up for Q&A. At any point during this webinar, please type your question into the chat box, ensuring it goes, as I mentioned before, all panelists in the dropdown, and then point to which panelist you'd like to direct your question to. And again, we'll pick these up at the end of this program. Now I'd like to turn it over to Chris Lenig and Clara Fuge to talk about accuracy and efficiency in production operations. Let's send it over to you. Chris?
All right. Thanks, Fritz. And good afternoon, everybody, and thanks again for joining us today. As Fritz mentioned, I'm Chris Lenig. I've got responsibility for P2's production solutions globally.
And I'm Clara Fuge. I have over 20 years experience in field operations and production accounting software, and have unfortunately been through more than a couple of these down market cycles.
So Clara, obviously we've been talking a lot about some of the levers that E&P companies should turn to provide this protection or maybe even a competitive edge in the production domain, particularly in this environment. And you specifically mentioned focusing on a couple of fundamental best practices as an area you'd like to highlight.
Yeah, naturally, I'm biased, given that my domain is production, but I like to say that production data is the lifeblood of most E&P company systems and processes. When production data doesn't flow on time into the right place, it impacts multiple downstream processes that are reliant on its delivery, from marketing to revenue to forecasts and even land. And this creates delays in critical decision making. When every drop matters, like it does now, it's even more important to focus on fundamental best practices that ensure that production data is not only timely, but that it's correct, because incorrect data can have long-lasting effects.
So you want to give us a quick example?
Sure. One of my favorites, accurate hydrocarbon well level allocations require both accurate measurement data and data-effective flexible algorithms.
Okay, so what should companies be doing to really drive that accuracy?
Well, first, continual communication between the field operations and production accounting. You want to ensure that what's happening in the field is always accurately reflected in the allocation networks. Are there plans to combine or separate a tank battery? Was a compressor moved? Is that well down temporarily or is it shut in long term? Second, continual assessment of the quality of the measurements along with daily and monthly validation processes that look for anomalies in those measurements. Is the sales meter drifting from its 30-day average? Is Olympic net gravity calculated correctly? How do this month's daily allocations stack up against last month's actuals?
So what are some of the outcomes of focusing on those fundamentals?
Well, there's a few. First of all, less rework, both day-to-day and on an ongoing basis. In other words, less prior period adjustments. Also, improved reserves reporting, less regulatory fines, reduced exposure to litigation from partners. Another one, improved asset performance. Correct allocations mean a better understanding of the health of the well. If allocations are off by 5%, then ultimate recovery can be off by 10%. And from a corporate perspective, an example is that accurate daily allocations lead to more accurate accruals for cash reporting. Very important in today's environment.
All right, thanks for sharing those, Claire. Obviously, I agree. I think those are all important. I think there's also some opportunities around the processes and technologies used in the field that can really drive efficiencies, cost reduction, and then the focus around optimization of your current production.
Explain.
So one is the concept of management by exception, really focusing your efforts and attention around where you have issues and prioritizing those issues by those with the highest value. So when you support that with the right technology and a sound business process, you can really drive significant improvement opportunities through things like increasing your lease operator coverage, reducing drive time, and minimizing or mitigating unplanned downtime events and production deferment. One example we see a lot of is around the adoption of an operations center approach for managing your field operations. So this really gets to the concept of strengthening the connection between the field and the back office. So you've got multiple disciplines, your supervisors, your foremen, your engineers, your lease operators working collaboratively through a common shared central environment with access to real-time or near real-time dashboards and diagnostic tools that allow you to surface and visualize issues with wells and equipment as they occur. So you can get the right person to quickly dispatch a particular location to address a particular issue.
So, Chris, what do companies need to do to achieve this kind of model?
Well, I mean, it does require some reliance on technology, which can bring together data from multiple different sources. That could be SCADA data, your production data, maybe forecast data or maintenance information. What we're trying to do is create a digital real-time view of the operation. So once you have that view established, you can back it up with a surveillance engine or process that allows you to continuously monitor your asset performance and really identify issues or anomalies based on defined limits or conditions. And from that point, the system can either automatically or manually assign tasks to the right person in the field based on location or skill set.
Okay, so what else do they need?
Well, obviously, you've got to have the ability to easily manage that communication and collaboration with the field. So obviously, everybody today carries a mobile device, either a phone or a tablet. So it just made sense to leverage the native capabilities of these devices through things like alerts, notifications, GPS and mapping solutions, and integrating that with our field applications to drive more improved operations. So we really want to be able to enable the field operator to better plan their day and ultimately reduce those unplanned downtime events and deferments. So how do we get the right person to the right place at the right time with the context to address their most pressing issues?
Okay, so give us an example of how a surveillance engine that's capable of producing these tasks, coupled with mobile devices in the field receiving these tasks, can help a field operator manage more wells.
Sure. I mean, one is what we call just a simple well performance monitor that takes into account multiple factors when wells are down or underperforming to determine which well or location to go to first. So the monitor may have a primary check against forecast, a secondary check against the well's production history over the last 30 days, and a tertiary check against the working interest. So if you've got two wells with similar characteristics and similar results for the first two criteria, the third criteria becomes a tiebreaker to determine which well to visit first. And again, this can be achieved with either an automatic ranking by a rules engine or by somebody sitting in the operations center, like a foreman, using the information that's available right at his fingertips to make a decision. So that's a pretty basic and straightforward example. I'd point out that the solution is highly flexible and allows organizations to run the spectrum from simple to highly complex monitors across a wide range of operational workflows. It really depends on the maturity or the operational complexity of a particular organization. We're certainly happy to speak with any of our customers or prospective customers about how we can help in the area or in this area. I think it's important to point out that organizations can start simple here and get immediate value through these types of solutions that are out of the box capabilities. It doesn't necessarily require a long implementation time frame or large upfront cost, and there's typically a pretty clear ROI opportunity around these solutions. So certainly happy to answer any questions at the end of the session, or feel free to reach out to myself or Clara. With that, I'll turn it back to Fritz.
Thank you, Chris, Clara. Terrific insights. Now let's shift over to land management relative to scale, management, and outsourcing considerations. Richard, over to you.
Thanks, Fritz. Good day to all. If you're interested in land, you're still with us. Thanks for hanging in there. We're going to talk a little today about how you can move forward in these interesting times and navigate your land department. But first, I want to introduce my land cohort at P2. He's Billy Lowry. Billy has a technical land background from a big company perspective. And before coming to P2, Billy recently worked at Newfield. Billy heads up the land solutions perspective for P2. Hey, Billy.
Hey, Richard. I'm glad to be here.
And I'm Richard Hines. I'm one of the founders of iLandman. I'm a 35-year landman, and my background is from the independent and small to mid-size E&P company perspective. We will talk today about land needs, also how to maintain and even scale if necessary, especially with reduced internal resources and outsourcing. See, P2's been around for about 30 years, so we see it all. Good data that's been maintained with assets that were cash cows for many years with $50 plus oil, but today with sub $20 oil, maybe they're not maintained so much. So Billy, why don't you give me a scenario and let's talk about how we'd approach it from a land software standpoint.
Sure, Richard. How about I got a company that's got 5 landmen, 3 lease techs, 1 lease analyst, and hit with our current environmental situation. And like everyone else, we're all working from home. Sound familiar? And then my boss, the VP of land, calls me and tells me we have opportunity to acquire assets from XYZ. But we need to bring on 15 guys to check title, review the leasehold, which is made up of complex ownership and is all depth severed. There's some producing and some non-op. How can I do some basic due diligence in this stay-at-home environment?
Whoa, Billy, let's not get too carried away. First, let's just talk about scalability. If your people have been let go and you need some short-term help, we're here to help you. We have at P2 what we call a virtual land department This is a group of very experienced landmen and lease analysts that can fill the gap until we see what's going to happen here. Also, our programs give you the ability to add whoever you need. You could set them up as a user with permissions to edit, or a viewer who can only view and print but can't change anything. And we can handle as many projects or users as you need, 1 or 2 or even 1,000, and we give you that ability. So yes, you can add the due diligence and title guides with no problem. And then if you're trying to sell your project or prospect, let us know. We have some pretty cool ideas and ways to help you do that.
Okay, Richard. So how exactly does the licensing work, and how do I get more people access to the system? Will they have access to all the data they need, and especially maps?
Yeah, we're on a subscription modules. So what you do is you get an annual subscription, and you only pay for the users who are using the program. We like to say pay if you play. Listen, P2 considers you a partner. So when it comes to software and data, we're here for you. And yes, the map comes standard with the software service.
Thanks, Richard. So talking about acquisition and outsourcing, is how can P2 help with my staff while everybody's in flux?
Yeah, we offer outsourcing for both land and accounting. As I said, we have the virtual land department, but we also offer back office outsourcing. So you get access to very experienced landmen, lease analysts, division art analysts, and accountants. So you don't have to staff up until you really see the need to. P2's been doing this for many, many years, so we're very experienced at it.
So when it comes to managing my assets digitally, Richard, so P2 offers products on premise and in the cloud. And in this environment, majority of our customers today are going with their cloud or hosted solutions like land and accounting, production, and our Tobin data. This can give you the edge that you need to understand your surroundings for future growth or just selling opportunities. How is P2 iLandman hosted?
Well, we're totally hosted in the cloud. From our development to our production environment, everything's in Microsoft Azure. So our cloud environment is second to none. We have some really good efficiencies that now making or having your land data in the cloud actually affordable. And we recently moved to a central platform, and it uses Auth0, a sophisticated security login. So it gives you the ability to jump between licenses, view and report on data between land and accounting, well and lease data. And all this is available on any device, whether it be a phone, a tablet, or your home computer.
So Richard, if I'm going through migrations and acquisitions of data right now, help me understand, what if I want to acquire ABC operating? What should I know about buying these leases and other agreements ahead of time?
Well, first, remember, you really want to make sure that the producing wells are actually producing and in the amount they're being portrayed, just like Chris and Clara were talking about earlier. But next, you want to know, what rights am I getting in this transaction from the leases, other contracts, and is this information available for review? Also, what system is it coming out of, and how am I going to receive the data? Do I need to convert it? Does it have maps and custom reports? So that I can review the information easily and visually. Also, another big question is, once I get the data, am I going to have to manually enter it into my system, or am I going to be able to migrate it? And then, do I need to clean it up? Is it on a track basis or a lease basis? Billy, you and I just did a blog on this just recently. So those on the call can go to the P2 website or on some of the social media outlets and read it, and it'll really help them answer some of these questions. Hey, Billy, I guess we're running out of time now. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the integration. I know P2's made this a priority, and I wanted you to just tell everybody what we're doing and what they should look for when needing information from the differing products and systems out there.
Sure, Richard. Here at P2, we have integration with most of our products, from data to land and mapping, land to accounting, production to accounting. We are helping investment firms link their portfolio companies so they can get the big picture and consolidate cost. Our integration gives teams the advantage of single source entry, data integrity with the power of a mega database results. Our teams look at what, where, and the how. What are you going to do with the data? Where do you need it? And how are you going to use the data? P2 is currently doing anywhere from 10 to 12 conversions a month of varying sizes. This gives us a keen insight to what is going on in the A&D world. as well as what is happening in each basin. We even see who has good data and whose data is not so good. P2 provides several land programs that integrate with our accounting programs. Bolo, Excalibur, Enterprise Upstream, P2, Land, and even iLandman. We all have land power. We have just completed integration for iLandman and Bolo Accounting and P2 Land to complete our field to back office business processes. So what if I say we just want the ability to work from our environment to yours and vice versa? How does that work, Richard?
Well, we created an API for that. API is Application Programming Interface. And basically, this is our handshake to the other programs. If they can shake back, then we can transfer data under certain protocols. It's very cool when you want to grab a big lease or track data set and bring it into your database so that it can be worked on. Being able to transition and transform in this type of environment will really be the difference between who wins and who loses.
This has been really good. If anyone has any questions or want to put some of this into practice, give us a shout. Back to you, Fritz.
Hey, Billy, thank you. Richard, as always, appreciate your time. I want to say thank you to all listening and engaged today. Firstly, for your business, whether you're a producer, a service company, investor, or industry partner. We all know you don't succeed. If you don't succeed, we don't succeed. And certainly P2 wants you to know we appreciate your efforts and loyalty. And our promise is to give you our best always. I'd like to express gratitude to both your employers and ours, because without them, none of this is possible. Thank you for your time today and your continuous input as we strive to make our interactions with the upstream oil and gas community as valuable as possible. And also I want to just thank all the panelists for their time today and really investing in a quality piece of work today. So as I mentioned earlier, we'll open up for Q&A. So please type your questions in the chat box, ensuring that it goes to all panelists in the drop-down menu. Also, please note which panelist your question is designated for. Just let me take a look here and see what we've got out there. Yeah, it looks like we do have a couple questions coming in here. Okay, right, let me just read this. All right. On the land side, I heard mapping several times. Which types of mapping programs does the P2 land software support, and is it easy to use? Richard, how about taking that?
Sure, I'll be glad to take it. What we use is we use Esury's ArcMap system as our backbone. And what we've done is we've added GeoServer on top of that to help with some of the heavy lifting and some of the things that are needed to keep it uncluttered. On top of that, we built an easy app map editor that anybody can use. So you can go in and you can draw polygons, you can edit those polygons and label them and do some of the things you need in map building.
Oh, terrific. Thank you for that, Richard. Let's see. Okay, I've got one here to Brandon. It says, you talked about workflow. Do you have some examples of how it's being used and the relative time savings?
Sure, Fritz. Absolutely. Steve talked about examining processes that you can automate. P2 does have a workflow tool that will do that. And the way it generally works is it integrates with Bolo or Excalibur, and you can send things like approvals over to the workflow tool to then set automated thresholds for approvals and to move it along through the process faster, and eliminate the manual steps of pushing paper around, getting paper signed, walking those things around, and move it in more into the digital environment. Two of the biggest examples are really needs that we hear from our customers in terms of automating approval workflows is approvals of manual journal entries and approvals of DOI changes. There are others. We have a number of workflows that we've built, but those are probably the top two that we hear.
Brendan, thanks. All right. Let's see. Next question is for Chris. On the production side, are traditional static route-based field operations a thing of the past, Chris?
All right, thanks, Fritz. The short answer is no. I don't think we're going to see that approach go away in the short term. I think many organizations expect their lease operators to visit each location or well site daily. Although we do see a shift. Some companies are starting to consider this management by exception approach or a more dynamic approach, and they're going to require some of the tools and capabilities I referred to earlier to make that transition. So I think, from my perspective, we want to provide our customers really the flexibility or optionality, I guess, to work differently if and when they choose to make that switch.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Let's see. Bear with me here. Okay, we've got accounting to Steve Tanabe. If I utilize a service like EnergyLink or FIS, does it integrate with your product?
Yes, they do, Fritz. We have built integrated services with our industry partners like EnergyLink and FIS. And so we have fully integrated services that work between those two products as well as other products like DocView and Open Invoice. So our services group can help them work with our customers to build out those services.
Thank you, Steve. I've got a question now for Clara and Chris. And the question is, does P2 do any types of downtime analysis for its clients?
Absolutely, we do. We actually have recently done a study of a number of our clients to look at the type of downtime categories that they are using and the associated deferment with those categories. And we're going to actually have an upcoming blog and webinar on this topic, so stay tuned.
Terrific. Thanks for that, Clara. Clara, I've got another one for you here that says, to Clara, you mentioned daily allocations used for accruals being important. What do you see as a good ratio of accruals to actuals?
All right, so let me just make sure everyone understands sort of accruals and actuals. Basically the concept of accruals is that you take your best available measurements at the end of the month and run your daily allocations and come up with a sum for each well of the total for the month. And what you're doing is estimating what you think your actual sales and production are going to be in when you get your final statements a couple months down the road. So what that allows you to do is to forecast what your cash reserves are going to look like, which is of course important today. So when people look at what compare what their sum of dailies look like to their final monthlies, we feel like 3% or less variance is a good number.
Great, thank you, Clara. Let's see, is there any other questions you'd like to bring forward to the panelists? I think that covers all the questions that I've got in my queue here.
Hey, I got one here from one of the attendees.
I just saw that pop through. Richard, you want to take that?
Sure. It says, can you explain how the different systems work together, BOLO, Excalibur, P2 LAN, iLandman, and can you map all the assets in the database, like right-of-ways, water rights, surface leases, as well as mineral leases? Well, just first off, how do they work together? What we've done is we've integrated a lot of these tools, the land accounting, production accounting, all together. And we use either a web service or the API so that we can transfer information back and forth, keep names and addresses in sync, invoices and payment requests, as well as the payments themselves all in sync. And you can map any of the assets in the databases, whether they be surface use agreements, water agreements, right-of-ways, as well as mineral leases and mineral deeds. All of those can be entered into the database, tracked, and reported on.
Great, Richard. Looks like I've got another one that's popped up during your answer, Richard, which is I'll direct to both Clara and Chris. I would say again, do you work with field direct for production information?
Well, absolutely. We do work with all types of production information. That is what the core of what we do. Any data that's coming in from the field in terms of measurement and that's used for allocations, that's our business. We have worked with clients who have used Field Direct. It's a very solid product, but most of our clients, if not all of them, use our own field data capture product. But we do have very good knowledge of Field Direct and have worked with that product before.
Clara, this is Tim Wadley. Let me add a little bit more because that question might have been coming from an accounting perspective. And we do have a open architecture. So you're able to bring in data from third-party systems like Field Direct if that's part of your architecture. Certainly something that P2 can support.
Tim, Clara, thank you. All right, any final questions here before we wrap up today's program? Looks like we're good. As another quick reminder here, I just wanted to let everyone know that we'll be sending out the webinar recording at the end of this week. We appreciate you joining us today. Listen, have a wonderful day and be safe out there. And we look forward to collectively meeting with all of you very soon. Thank you.